starting to look ugly. And I think that's why that redress sits at that 150. Obviously, it sits at the caps that have been put out toward healing and etc. But I still think, even though that's bad, sometimes now I'm looking at it and saying, I think we just expect too much of survivors to go through another whole layer of abuse. Maybe it is a better thing to just walk away with a cowardly amount set by the government, but that doesn't cause the re-trauma. It's just a bit of paperwork that seriously gets sent, And it's embarrassing to say that, but until we get better with the criminal justice system, I actually don't think people like yourself, correct me if I'm wrong, would even sue the perpetrator. I really don't think so. My clients, the main bulk of survivors, they want the acknowledgement that actually happened to them. And that's what the criminal justice system should give them, because otherwise it paints a picture of survivors being these money-hungry, money-grabbing people. We're actually not. We just want to tell our truth. We want the police to do something about it, half intelligent, and we want it to process out where he's convicted and he gets a shitty sentence. Okay, then we can have a separate argument about shitty sentencing. But what we actually want is the sentencing. That's the main thing, is that we actually get people that are sentenced, convicted and sentenced with an appropriate outcome. And that's what's lacking. And that's why so many people are now turning to, the county court. But I don't think from the outset people would be going down that route if, more than 99% of the time we actually got traction with the police. So I'm sorry that you would have to turn to something like that in a process like that, because I know what it's like. We have a special sex assault list in the county court, but my goodness, it's the same old re-traumatisation. I don't think they do a very good job at all. No, I don't.
Okay. Just looking at something on a real global level, to be able to recommend that victims of sex assault, either historical as children
yes.
or as adults, have their own representative in the criminal justice system from the start right through to the end of that process. The cost-benefit analysis of that is going to be a huge increase in conviction rates. It'll also, I think you're saying to me, reduce trauma.
Yes, it'll cause a bulging jail budget, I agree. There'll be some problems on that side in terms of the cost. But remember, things will be scrapped as a result. We will make money by scrapping VOCAT. There's no need to have that tribunal. VOCAT's an acknowledgement that the criminal justice system doesn't work. It's a safety net. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. We won't need to have VOCAT. Also, get rid of the witness assistance service at the OPP. The hand holders that come along and they're a little counsellor and they sit there and say, that's the judge, he sits there, that's where your legal team will sit, that's where you'll sit. We don't need that. We don't need a hand holder. Get rid of the dogs in the courtroom to pat for victims. That is just lip service to victims. We will save money. All of the psychologists that are currently sitting in the witness assistance program that help victims at the OPP, replace them with lawyers. Replace them with their own lawyer, the cost of lawyers. You do not need to have a hand holder by the state. You actually need legal advice. If you want to cry to your grandmother, bring a friend to court. You don't need another one provided by the state sitting there that is actually doing nothing legally for that victim. But I take your point that yes, it's a lot of cost, because naturally the issue will be for victims that can afford their own lawyer, that's great, but what about those that can't? So again, that proposes that Victoria Legal Aid pay for victims to have a lawyer just like they do defendants. But again, you would have to meet a criteria, and that's getting narrower and narrower every day. Most people aren't eligible for legal aid. But again, that is nothing, sort of inevitable about the way we process crime. We could just really look at this and redraw the map of what that looks like. And then I think naturally the cases in the county court will reduce, because really that is a court of sex assault cases. That's what it is. That's the bulk of the work in the county court, is sex assault cases. Why? Because they're not working in the criminal justice system, and you've got this automatic right of appeals all the way to the High Court for people like Adrienne Bailey. Now, why should someone like Adrienne Bailey be able to appeal all the way to the High Court, but I, the victim, a taxpayer all my life, can't get the most basic first-year lawyer to represent me in my case. There is something just inherently wrong with that I can't comprehend. I would like someone more learned than me to tell me why my right as a citizen to have a lawyer for my case isn't there. But Adrian Bailey, I mean, I don't think he's got too many fans in high places. I don't think I'm offending anyone. Why has he got a right to go all the way to the High Court? I'm baffled. I'm baffled why our system would support him to do that and me not to have standing in my own matter. They say it's a police matter, but it actually is our matter. It's our criminal matter. I'm bringing the complaint. I'm the complainant, so I should have a higher status than, say, someone that walked by and saw what happened to me. I mean, why are we just called police witnesses? I'm the star of the show. It's my case. It should be the police and Ingrid Irwin and my perpetrator. We should all have our name there in the title of the police case. We are just, the fact that we're a nothing makes us find all these other forums for justice that we shouldn't have to find. We should just tell the police and things should follow.
So having your own lawyer as a victim of sex assault that will be with you from point A right through to point Z will, in all ways, both legal, psychological, and in the matter of reassurance, be a forward step.
Absolutely.
And it's not a huge ask for the government to do so.
Correct. It shouldn't be politically controversial. This is what I'm saying. When I look at the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, or I look at the leader of the previous leader of the opposition, Bill Shorten, when I look at them and how they present, they're both with wives and daughters. And when I look at them with their wives and daughters standing up there, and particularly Tony Abbott just always comes to mind when he had his display of white-clad daughters all around him and his wife. When I see that, I just think, like, do you understand that you're not doing anything to give voice to all these intelligent girls that are duxes of, the best schools and learning establishments? What are you actually doing for future generations? And this is really my concern. And I think really the cost to the state could be counteracted against the cost of our bulging health budget. How many of us victims are a toxic financial load on the state? If you want to get rid of that, give us justice. Move the money over here so we're not broken people for the rest of our lives. Give us justice. Give us dignity by saying, yes, this happened to you. We acknowledge your abuse. Why do we have to get that from CASA only? Give it to us here and we won't be bleeding on the state forever there. I mean, really, it's just about moving money to give dignity to us. We're still going to have to spend a lot of money as a government. So look at reallocating it and looking at what can actually help us. And in the long term, if you see this as a health issue, you will give us the justice here and not keep denying us so that we're forever still trying to seek that acknowledgement. Look at social media, how many of us are crying out and still saying what happened to us, age 7, age 10, age 15. That comes from the fact that we're still not acknowledged and we're desperate for it, and we're hunting and searching and seeing our psychologist every week about just that. Yes.
Ingrid, I've got a final overview, what the track is for the Pell case now is, if the appeal is upheld, Pell walks free, and then the OPP can take the matter to the High Court.
Yeah.
And you said earlier that you didn't think that was a likely outcome. If it was to be that they did make the decision to take it to the High Court, what's your opinion on whether the appeal will be overturned?
Yes, the High Court has a habit of upholding the jury's decision, so it would return, and that's a good thing. But I'm saying it shouldn't have to go to that. We shouldn't need to always play this legal game right up to the High Court, and for the High Court to say, no, jury actually got it right. I mean, we need to be led by social sciences in the law. The law is a relic. It's not an expert, right? The Royal Commission has shown us just how off track the law is in this area of sexual assault, and particularly historic sexual assault. So we need to look at it. And look, going back to the point, I've just thought of something else about just the budget and how our whole approach to this. If you think about child protection matters, where a child's deemed at risk of harm, say of sexual abuse from a family member, because we know most sexual abuse is a family member. So, and I've worked in that area. So imagine there's a child at risk of harm of either further sexual abuse or initial sexual abuse by a family member, and that child is removed from the family because they're at risk of harm, right? So the Department of Human Services come in, the social worker makes an application to the court, and it's about removing that child from that family or from that family member. Now, when that case goes to court, the Department of Human Services are represented by a lawyer. This is all at the government's expense, mind you, what I'm about to say. They have a lawyer, the Department of Human Services, then the child has a lawyer. Each sibling of the child has a lawyer. The foster parents have a lawyer, their own lawyer. Each biological parent has their own lawyer because they're usually separated, so they have their own lawyers. Grandmother might be part of the proceeding joined. She might have an interest in the child. Anybody that has an interest in the child has their own separate lawyer. So you'll have at the bar table maybe 10 lawyers in any child protection matter. Now, this is all funded by the state. The state doesn't turn around and say, oh no, look, we can't afford to represent all these independent legal interests. But in crime, it's like they're just holding on to some bastion of an idea that victims don't need their own lawyer. It is ridiculous. It just can't be justified on any ground, particularly when I see in other jurisdictions like child protection, each and every person has their own lawyer and legal interests. So really, I think it's about time that the government just accepted they're going to have to just move money, shift it from where they've allocated into all these hand-holding schemes through the OPP, and actually give it to them where it belongs. And so I think until they do that, I think the criminal law is just sort of a farce. It's like a little show that we watch from time to time when we're bored. But you know, this is at huge expense to victims, and I'm just sick of it, and I'm going to spend the rest of my days saying how bad it is till there's change. And I want someone intelligent from the government to refute me, cut me down. Seriously, I've been on TV, I've been in the media. Someone more learned should be able to put a little imp like me out, shouldn't they? Butt me out and say, Miss Irwin, you're quite wrong because blah, 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 blah. No one said it. They're just hoping that people don't get what I'm saying, or I really don't know. But the legal profession know exactly what I'm saying. And it's high time that those recommend it. We just need legislative change. Cowards punch legislation took 5 weeks only to bring in, right? We decided we are not going to stand for some drunken lout knocking out some other person to their death, and we're going to say that you're responsible for murder. Cowards punch legislation, brilliant legislation. 5 weeks. 5 weeks. Why is it taking so long for this to happen? Why are people pretending this isn't happening and setting up all these adjunct schemes instead of fixing what happened in that courtroom today? I just don't know.
Ingrid, I've got a final question. When Judge Kidd in the sentencing, he spoke about not being able to, he was not sentencing Cardinal Pell for other survivors' issues or trauma. I don't have the exact wording.
Yes, the quote was, he said, this sentence today, or I'll ad-lib, I think it's something like words to this effect. He said, this sentence today, you know, for other survivors listening out there and survivors of historic abuse, you know, and involved with institutional abuse, this sentence today is not and cannot be a vindication of your trauma, or words to that effect. Now, that's irresponsible, because for 99% of victims, we only have vicarious justice. We get justice through the 1% that get justice, and we hang on it and live on it, and we celebrate with that survivor or that complainant that got up in their case. You know, we go out to the pub with them, we have a drink, we share a beer, we talk about, you know, what they've been through and how it was worth it. And we live in hope for that. We love that someone else has got their truth out there. But that's all that we've got. 99% of us don't have that. We don't even get anywhere near a courtroom. You know, the attrition rate is so much before that trial or an appeal. So for Chief Justice Kidd to make those remarks, although, you know, his decision and reasons for the decision were, you know, applauded at being so sensitive and ticking every box, really, from my perspective, when I look at it, to make those comments were really socially irresponsible, because the survivors out there are hanging on to hope, and that's all the justice system gives them. And I think to have vicarious justice, if that's all we've got, we're going to bloody hang on to it. So, I think, for example, the complaint